On a bright Monday morning in Savannah, Georgia, Elena Johnson adjusted the brim of her vintage straw hat and straightened her navy blue blazer. She was ready to face the world as she stepped out of her compact, well-maintained hybrid car. Ahead of her stood the upscale car dealership, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun. Elena had been eyeing a particular luxury SUV for months, a symbol of quiet triumph after years of hard work and sacrifice. Today, she was finally ready to make it hers. As Elena entered the air-conditioned showroom, the atmosphere felt icy, not due to the temperature, but because of the stares. Conversations among the staff paused, and curious eyes swept over her. Elena was dressed simply but elegantly. Her blazer was tailored, and her shoes were polished. Yet her worn leather handbag seemed to tell a different story, one of years of hard work and perseverance. Her warm brown skin and silver-streaked curls drew more scrutiny than her attire. A salesman with a slick haircut and a tight suit approached her. His name tag read, Ben. He flashed a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Good morning, ma'am," he said in a tone that was polite but lacked warmth. "How can I help you today?" Elena smiled back, her voice calm and confident. "Good morning. I'd like to take a closer look at the 2024 Lexus RX 500H, she said, gesturing toward the sleek, pearl-white SUV in the center of the showroom. Ben's smile faltered for a brief moment before he quickly recovered. "Ah, yes, the RX. That's quite a vehicle," he said, his tone dripping with condescension as he vaguely gestured toward the lower-end models at the edges of the showroom. Elena's expression didn't change. "I'm sure," she replied simply. Another salesman, a younger man named Chris, wandered over, clearly intrigued. He leaned toward Ben and whispered something under his breath. They both chuckled. Elena noticed the exchange but chose to ignore it. Instead, she walked over to the Lexus and ran her fingers over the hood, admiring its sleek design. "What's the price on this model?" she asked. Ben folded his arms, his smirk returning. "This one starts at $75,000, he said slowly, as if speaking to someone who might not grasp the magnitude of the number. Elena nodded thoughtfully, taking in the details of the car and the features. "Is this one fully loaded?" she asked. Ben shrugged, his tone dismissive. "Oh, it's got all the bells and whistles, but, we have some excellent pre-owned models as well. They're more approachable," he added with a chuckle. Chris snickered, and another voice from across the room chimed in. "Maybe she's just here for a test drive." Got to live the dream somehow. The laughter that followed was soft but sharp enough to cut through the calm atmosphere. Elena maintained her composure and turned toward the door. Without a word, she thanked Ben and walked out of the dealership, her heart pounding, not with anger, but with determination. She paused for a moment by her car, looking back at the gleaming building. Adjusting her hat, Elena got into her car and drove away, her mind already racing with plans. Elena Johnson wasn't just an ordinary woman in her mid-50s, wearing a blazer and sensible shoes. Her story was one of quiet resistance and unyielding ambition. Born and raised in a small town near Charleston, South Carolina, Elena had grown up in a time when opportunities for Black women were scarce. Her parents, both school teachers, had instilled in her a deep sense of pride in a relentless work ethic. Elena had spent 30 years building her career in finance, climbing the ranks in an industry where she was often the only woman of color in the room. She didn't just manage money, she mastered it. Through meticulous planning and smart investments, Elena had built a portfolio that allowed her to retire early. But retirement didn't mean idleness. She poured her energy into mentoring young women of color, helping them navigate careers and break barriers she had once faced. That evening, Elena sat at her dining table, a cup of green tea steaming beside her as she reviewed her financial records. She had seen the dealership's listing months ago while browsing investment opportunities. At the time, she had dismissed it as uninteresting, but now it seemed almost poetic. With quiet resolve, she picked up the phone and called her financial advisor. The next morning, the dealership was buzzing with its usual activity. Salespeople gathered near the coffee station, sharing stories and laughing about the oddball customers they had encountered. Ben was in the middle of recounting yesterday's encounter. "Did you see her? She probably doesn't even make that much in a year," he said, stirring his coffee. Chris grinned. "You're nicer than me. I'd have told her to check out the used car lot down the street. The laughter was loud and carefree. The laughter that followed was loud and unrestrained, the kind that assumes the subject of the joke will never hear it. But Elena wasn't the kind of person to let such moments slide unnoticed. By noon, she was sitting in a conference room with the dealership's owner finalizing paperwork. By the end of the meeting, she held the keys to more than just a car. She owned the entire dealership. That afternoon, Elena returned to the showroom. This time, she didn't linger by the cars. Instead, she walked straight to the manager's office. The general manager, a man named Robert, greeted her with a puzzled look. "Can I help you?" he asked. Elena smiled. "Yes, I believe it's time to gather the staff. I have an announcement to make." Within minutes, the entire team was assembled in the showroom. Ben and Chris stood near the back, their earlier bravado replaced with curiosity. Elena stepped forward, her posture commanding respect. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice steady. "My name is Elena Johnson, and as of this morning, I am the new owner of this dealership." The room fell silent. Ben's face turned pale, and Chris shifted uncomfortably. Robert's jaw dropped, but he quickly composed himself. "Excuse me?" he stammered. Elena nodded. "That's correct. The deal was finalized a few hours ago. I wanted to introduce myself and outline some changes we'll be making." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Yesterday, I came in as a potential customer and was treated with a lack of professionalism and respect. That's going to change." She let that statement hang in the air before continuing. "Effective immediately, this dealership will operate with a new set of standards. Every customer who walks through these doors will be treated with dignity, regardless of their appearance." Ben's voice was barely a whisper. "It was just a misunderstanding," he said. Elena's gaze locked on him, unwavering. "It was an opportunity," she corrected him. "An opportunity to show kindness and professionalism, and you missed it. But I believe in second chances. So consider this yours." Over the next few weeks, Elena implemented sweeping changes. She introduced training programs on customer service and diversity, held workshops on unconscious bias, and started community outreach initiatives. Some employees resisted and eventually left, but those who stayed found themselves inspired by her leadership. Ben, humbled by the experience, began to transform. Elena didn't single him out for punishment, but instead guided him with firm yet supportive feedback. He eventually became one of the dealership's top performers, known for his genuine rapport with customers. One day, a young woman in a faded hoodie and sneakers walked into the showroom. Her wide eyes scanned the cars nervously. Ben approached her with a warm smile. "Welcome," he said. "How can I help you today?" Elena watched the interaction from her office, a quiet smile on her face. Moments like this made all the effort worthwhile. The dealership wasn't just a business anymore. It was a symbol of transformation, a place where respect and integrity were non-negotiable. For Elena, the greatest triumph wasn't owning the dealership or turning it into a community pillar. It was seeing the change in the people around her. She had taken a moment of humiliation and turned it into an opportunity to redefine what success looked like. Not just for herself, but for everyone who crossed her path. And in doing so, she reminded the world that respect isn't optional, it's essential. As weeks turned into months, the dealership thrived under Elena's leadership. The once stuffy, impersonal showroom had transformed into a welcoming space where every customer felt valued. Elena was often seen walking the showroom floor, engaging with customers and offering support to her staff. She made it clear that no one was too small, too old, or too out of place to receive exceptional service. Her staff, inspired by her vision, adopted the changes she had implemented. Ben, now a seasoned sales consultant, was often the first to welcome customers with a smile, offering genuine advice and ensuring their needs were met. The team had become a cohesive unit, working together to create an environment of mutual respect and trust. One morning, a young couple entered the dealership. They were dressed casually and their nervous energy was palpable. Elena watched from her office, seeing the couple hesitate at the door. Before they could even approach the sales desk, Ben greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome," he said. "How can I help you today?" Elena smiled to herself, knowing that the dealership had changed for good. For Elena, the transformation wasn't just about the success of the dealership. It was about proving that dignity, respect, and kindness should always be at the heart of any business. She had turned a personal moment of humiliation into a lasting legacy, a place where everyone felt they belonged. As she walked through the dealership one last time, Elena couldn't help but feel a sense of fulfillment. The cars were more than just vehicles to her now. They were symbols of the journey she had taken, a journey that had started with a moment of judgment and ended with a realization that success was not about appearances, but about the integrity with which one carried themselves. As she left the dealership that day, Elena glanced up at the sky, feeling the weight of her journey lift. She had made it. She had done more than just buy a dealership. She had changed lives, including her own. And in doing so, she had proven that respect is not something to be earned from others, but something that one gives and in turn receives.